Ayo, let's build.
Sun is shining, weather is sweet. Now this is the
My name is Yves Darbouze, and this is the Pan African product. I wanna just share with you that this is a hands-on, interactive piece of content. Even though I haven't had done interviews yet or anything like that. Please comment and tell me what you think is wrong with the projects, and comment on more than my handwriting. I know my handwriting is bad, but it's an exercise in order for you to kind of visualize it. And I think it's an important part of this process. I will get better at writing with this thing. I don't have any good excuses. I've been using Wacom pads since '99, so I should know better. I should do better, and I will. But that being said, someone wrote me about the flow chart that's in this book. Leave operationalizing a Pan-African state, where we go through the process using agile product management techniques and methodology. Agile works well with data-driven methodologies. And I use those same methodologies, those same systems, design thinking methods to write this book, to actually think through the development of a Pan-African state in the way that you do it with a product. And part of that process was developing this flowchart. See, my brain is designed to think in a way from 30 years of working. I've tried to do other things. I've tried to own a nightclub. I tried to be other things than what I am, but that's my talent. That's what I'm good at. I have two talents that make it where I'm good at this job. And if I could give it to Fortune 500 companies, if they can hire me, pay me a lot of money, but they make a whole lot more. And it's not a thing of jealousy or anything like that. I want to exist in a plane of existence, right? That not only is not guaranteed, is no one's life is guaranteed, but you go to sleep at night comfortable that you're going to wake up the next morning and everything is going to be all right. We now have a large population of people that look like us. Yes, even you light-skinnedness ones. That's the crazy thing. When you go to Africa, you see people that look like your people in America, and it's so funny. It's so funny. It's hilarious. And they've never even touched foot in America at all. But let's talk about this flow chart. Let's talk about, what they are. Like, typically they trickle down to the bottom. Sometimes they go right to left. But what a flow chart forces a programmer to do when we think we have everything in our head, it starts to make things mandatory. The first part is this here, which is called the problem space. Right? The problem space, it basically lays out for this execution, which is the thinking out of developing the Aero. The problem space has to, what's the word I'm looking for? It has to precede anything that you do first. First, you have to identify the things, what you're trying to solve with this currency. We're trying to solve a continent's lack of funding, right? That's any thinking going into the Aero has to solve that first issue. That is the problem with African countries. These businesses do not have funding. So everything looks thrown together. Everything looks bootleg because there's no investment. There's no capital. With this ideation, with the system that we're trying to develop, we want to make the lack of funding a problem we don't think about anymore, right? The number two thing that you have to solve is sanctions. All African nations live in fear of sanctions. And this idea, this system that we've designed deals with sanctions in two ways. One, it opens up a market, 1.4 billion Africans. If you could lift 400 million, 500 million, the number I had in 2023 and 2024 when I was writing the book was 300 million. I think that number is larger just based off of other data points that kind of says, the money for this amount of people, the money is not there to make these type of investments. And it all is tied in together. If you don't have money, you don't have the right money to pay a contractor to come fix your house. So he comes in and he's trying to do it on the cheap, and he probably doesn't have experience or skill set, and it all just trickles down, right? So the sanctions, it doesn't just stop you from selling abroad, it stops you from selling on your continent. If we design this currency right, sanctions are a thing of the past, right? The other thing, fraud. We have to deal with fraud, corruption. Corruption and fraud they are synonymous in a way, but not in the statecraft sense. See, fraud is fraudulent business undertaking, and corruption is in the government. It's in who works for you. We don't necessarily deal with the corruption, but we deal with the fraud, right? And then lastly, distribution. Distribution was one of the things that just the logistics of it alone, if you're working with 54 African nations to distribute that money. So, we've come up with concepts to decentralize the minting and printing of money, to make it on demand versus make it the first mover. A Pan-African currency should be digital because that's the easiest way to distribute it. And rural distribution, believe it or not, at least one or two people have cell phones in some of the most rural areas. It might be one that is shared by a few people, but it doesn't matter. They know how to use mobile phones. And when it's about your money, you will learn how to use an intuitive little phone app or wallet app that is simple to learn. But all those things being said, this is what in the problem space here that you have to mitigate before you could get here and consider the Aero or creating the Aero something that is feasible. Once we've gotten past these parts of the problem states, and you don't have to list the political problems. Like I shared the book, well, not really the book. It's hard to get people to read a book that long, even if you're paying them. But I shared my book with, 4 collegiate academic economists, and all of them said the same thing. Your idea is pretty solid. You just can't get 54 African leaders to do it. And they were like, if you got 50, you'd be interesting. If you got 40, you might have something. It would be work, but you'd still be in the same problem. They'd put military bases in all the 10 countries. All those things are political problems where the part of the product solution, the Aero doesn't deal with the political problems. The Pan-African state deals with the political problem. So in the Aero's creation, dealing with these things here, and we start to describe what makes it valuable. It's based on African resources, right? It's a utility token, right? It's mandatory for external buyers. Now, that was the word I used when starting to conceive it. But when I actually started to build this, I didn't need to make it mandatory on the buyer's end, right? That's not who has to. Let them present whatever they want. The mechanism, right? Once that starts to turn, right? What happens here is that the receiver gets Aeros. The buyer just presents whatever currency that they have. The conversion happens seamlessly. That's what technology lets you do. Gaddafi's dream was a good one, but what made it almost impossible to do was the logistics. People don't think about it. It's not just that you have a bunch of goofy African leaders who don't understand that they're being used, right? I don't say that to be condescending. I say that to be challenging. I say that to make you want to do better, to appeal to something deeper, right? So these things that starts to happen once you implement the Aero, right? That is based on resources, right? Every single one of these African resources has a value. Why not what comes out of the African land be the basis of which our wealth is measured? Why does it have to be gold? Why does it have to be anything in one particular thing? The question is, will people over the next 50 years buy oil, buy diamonds, buy gold, buy bauxite, buy coltan, buy iridium, buy cobalt, buy African cacao, right? Are you going to want, in 50 years, do you believe that people are going to want to see the pyramids? That's what's happening here. We are a resource base. That's how we get our value, right? We do that in the form of a utility token. The utility is the granting of access to African wealth. And you don't have to do anything. Present your dollars, present your yuan, RMBs, whatever you want to call it. Present your ruples. We want them all. They go to the Pan-African Central Bank. It receives the foreign currency and stores it. Why? Because we're going back and we're solving this thing again, the sanctions. We don't want to have to hit SWIFT to get access to dollars. We don't want to have to hit any international system, right? We can guarantee we could do what WePay or WeChat, both has transactional methods built into those applications. But what China has done is just use software and just use their mental will. What do you mean I have to use SWIFT? I have 1.4 billion people. We lifted 800 million people out of poverty. I don't have to use anything that you tell me to use. I hold $900 billion of your debt. Who are you to talk to us? That's where I want to get Africa. And we have the tools to do it, and this currency would be central to it, but let's keep going. So here, right, mandatory, not necessarily mandatory, right, utility backed by resources. All these things, if you watch the other video, right? Simple. The seller receives arrows. You sell coltan, you sell cobalt, you sell whatever you sell, whatever mine you have, you receive arrows. Now, if you want to convert it, the money will always be there for you in the Pan-African Central Bank. The foreign currencies never get touched. They only get used to convert to foreign currencies. And this is a way we can do it without SWIFT. We could be connected to SWIFT where it needs to be, right? Where it needs to be to give access to our market from their system. They have to be worried if we cut them off, right? I watched China past months basically using rare earths and saying to them, well, you could put all the tariffs that you want. I'll just not give you rare earths. And the United States panicked because you can't power this military machine without rare earths. And that's what you could do if you don't have to any longer worry about sanctions. Right. The foreign currency goes to the Pan-African Central Bank. The receiver, the seller, receives arrows, right? And this influx of capital allows us to fund things. It allows us to build infrastructure. It allows us to, what does it say, capital for, right? Everything that we promise we can do. Africans right now, very concerned about their lives, living, eating. Doesn't necessarily care about the fact that they were walking in dirt and tripped over a diamond. The diamond doesn't mean anything to them. The uranium doesn't mean anything to them. Can they eat with it? They can now. They can now with this type of design, with what we're saying here, right? Right? We want to power the industries of Africa. You can do that now. Once you implement this where you have funding, these are your outcomes. This is what you get, right? This mic not getting along tonight. That's all of this works. Economic stability, healthcare, education, UBI, all of these methods, all of these outcomes, these results happens if we do this. We take ownership of our wealth. And we do it in a way where we don't have to, like, let the member nations decide how they want to own the resources. The Pan-African state only wants to create the market for it so that your leverage and your negotiations are impeccable, are impenetrable even. The idea of this is better than the handwriting for sure. That's for sure. But the idea of this is realistic. It's real. We can do this today. It's not that easy. There's things that have to be done. We talk about it in other videos, but to get these outcomes, to get there, it's not hard. It's this. We can do it. That is 100% for sure. My name is Yves Darbouze, and as per usual, this is the Pan-African product.